Before I get started, let me clarify. This is not about throwing shade on Gen Y or Gen Z or baby boomers or millennials. This is about celebrating what was so cool about growing up in Generation X. So let's get started with number 5, perspective. When we were growing up, the world felt like a much smaller and less connected place. You weren't constantly tethered to a communication device in your pocket that would give you updates every other second about what was happening in your neighborhood, your town, or the world. And so you had time to contemplate what it meant to be you. And you didn't know about the things that happened all day until the end of the day when you watched or listened to the news. There was no hand sanitizer. It was okay to just get dirty and then come home and get clean. Not everything is going to kill you. Not everything is scary and dangerous. And those long stretches of time when you were out playing or exploring or just being yourself meant you put yourself in context. You realized that you are not a unique and special snowflake. You are just you. You don't need a participation trophy. It's okay to participate and fail or win on your own merits. And it's that sort of perspective about where you stand in relation to the rest of the world that's a little harder to come by today. And that brings me to the number 4 thing I learned growing up in Generation X, resourcefulness. You have to remember, this is before Amazon, this is before Uber, this is before the world was at your fingertips. So when you needed a problem solved, if there was a problem, sometimes you just had to figure out a way to solve it. So I'll solve it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. We're talking about people who grew up spending more time trying to figure out how to solve a Rubik's Cube than working on their homework. You're talking about people that used a pencil to rewind a cassette. And it's that resourceful nature, the lessons we learned growing up, that have carried over now as Gen X grown-ups that help us in our day-to-day life. Not everything has to be solved by ordering a new part. Sometimes it's okay to just MacGyver it. Now we're getting into the meat of it. The number 3 thing I learned growing up in Generation X, patience. When we were growing up, all gratification was delayed gratification. There was no TV show binging. There was make sure you show up on time to see your favorite TV show or you missed it. I know people today think they have patience. I can't believe I've got to wait another year for the next Star Wars movie, or I can't believe my favorite video game is delayed another 3 months. But try the patience it takes having a conversation with somebody. You can't remember the name of that guy in that movie, and you just got to not know for a while. You can't just grab a box out of your pocket and look it up like that. You have to spend time not knowing, wanting to know. I think the whole concept of the world of information at your fingertips has fundamentally changed the way that people are wired. They can no longer handle not knowing. As soon as they don't know, what's this song? Shazam. Who is that guy? IMDb. What was that country? Wikipedia. The best we could ever do as Generation Xers was to call the information desk down at the library or remember it on our own. I doubt it's very easy, if possible at all, to rewire your brain once you're accustomed to that instant gratification. So that sort of patience is liable to be a lost art. Let's move on then to the number 2 thing I learned growing up in Generation X, independence. I don't think many people would argue that the last couple of generations have been the generations of helicopter parenting. There's so much paranoia about what's out there, who's out there, what's going to happen if I let my child run free. The kids, now adults, don't get a chance to learn what it means to be independent until they're forced to go be independent like a bird shoved out of the nest. But growing up in Generation X, you were allowed to walk out the front door and play all day. Just make sure you're home by dark. And the best part of that is while you were gone, you were completely disconnected. Don't know what you got till it's gone. What I wouldn't give today to be disconnected for a few hours. Sometimes that's impractical. People take a tech vacation sometime and turn off their phone for a bit. And it's not that I miss the days of being disconnected. I love my tech toys. But the fact that I was disconnected and had my independence when I went out to play when I was a kid growing up means I know how to be without all that connection. I think that's something that recent generations have and will continue to struggle with, but through no fault of their own, just a byproduct of the era they were raised in. So let's move on to the number 1 thing. The number 1 thing I learned growing up in Generation X that serves me best to this day, interpersonal communications. Now again, let me remind you, I am not dogging on tech toys. I love my phone, I love my tablet, I love being connected. But the ease with which we are connected electronically, I think has stunted our interpersonal communication growth. Here's what I mean. When I wanted to talk to a friend on the phone, I dialed them up, and if their mom answered, I had to talk to their mom. I had to figure out how to address an adult that I had no interest in talking to, but how to be polite and how to carry on a conversation without just saying, let me talk to Joey. Then later, if I was going to pick up my date, I couldn't just pull the car out front and text, come on out. I had to get out of my car, walk up to the front door, knock, and talk to a very inquisitive father who wants to know what we're going to be doing this evening. You had to learn how to communicate with people, to get across your best self, and present yourself in a way that is acceptable to other people in the world. You couldn't just hide behind a screen and pretend to be something you're not. In essence, it meant you learned how to talk to strangers. And that serves you in a job interview. It serves you if you're trying to sell a customer on your product, or to have the confidence to walk down a busy street staring at a phone on the end of a stick for an hour. Those sorts of interpersonal communication skills are invaluable. And while you probably can learn them, boy, it's easier if it's already baked into the way your brain is wired. It's really helped me as the #1 thing I learned growing up as a Generation Xer. Hey, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I